Clemson's missing 27 scholarship players for the bowl game, and Dabo says nobody cares.
You are Locked On Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Tiger fans? Morgan Thomas here, Clemson fan, Clemson grad, host and producer of Locked On Clemson, part-time host and producer over on 105.5 FM The Roar. Thank you so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen of the day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network now, the #1 sports podcast network, and that is due to you, the everydayers out there. You know who we are and how we do it here, Monday through Friday, every single week, exclusive Clemson content right here for you. And if you're not a part of it, well, what are you waiting for? Hit that like, hit that subscribe, hit that follow button, and so you never miss another episode here on Locked On Clemson. All things exclusive Clemson talk all week. So we'd love for you to join us, continuing to grow it. If you remember back in February, I had this show and I started off and we had about 1,300 subscribers on YouTube and, about, maybe a couple hundred listeners on podcasts. Now we have over 1,000 on podcasts and we have over 3,000 on YouTube. So thank you so much for the love and support. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Today's episode, we're going to dive into what Dabo Swinney said in the post-game or the pre-game press conference for, or at least the pre-postseason press conference for the bowl matchup, talking about the roster, what his plan for QB is, and the opt-outs. But starting everything off, Dabo said, first of all, that this bowl season is involving a lot of transfers, a lot of opt-outs, a lot of injuries, but ultimately that nobody cares. And what do I mean by nobody cares? Or what does he mean by nobody cares? Well, mainly the fact that nobody's going to give Clemson any sympathy or any extra points because of being, down, as Mickey said this morning, about 30% of the roster. And you can argue that this is why it's frustrating to say that they need to play this game or that they're going to play this game, because this is not the 2025 Clemson football team. And it's, borderline, maybe not even the 2026 football team. So you're getting a little bit of a glimpse of some of the players, a little bit of a glimpse of some of the players who will play next season, but some that just will not be on the team next season. Cade Klubnik is going to try to make a last go of it. And there'll be a lot of other guys that are looking to get their last hurrah at the college level. There'll be a few guys trying to get their first chance, or at least a start on the spring in the offseason to showcase what they can do when they get their opportunity. Now the guys are out of the way. There'll be a lot of guys who aren't playing at all that were part of this team in 2025 or part of just the last game of the season and now are no longer around. But it all ends up being next man up. And the same goes for Penn State. So that's why there will be nobody that gives Clemson any extra sympathy because of it, because everyone is actually dealing with it. And it's not really coach speak or anything. It's just the truth. In my opinion, nobody does care. And it does frustrate me. This is the way the bowl season has turned into. The games don't matter that much. The bowls don't matter that much. And the players seem to opt out more and more as they get ready for either another team in college in the transfer portal, or they get ready for the NFL or maybe somewhere else, maybe just, surgeries that's keeping them out. Clemson is entering this bowl game in a position that nobody wants to have to deal with, but that is the state of college football right now. 27 scholarship players unavailable. It's not technically what you would call normal attrition, or is it? I mean, it is now the new normal with college football that you have to deal with a lot of players no longer being on the team. This is the modern era of the transfer portal, of NIL, of getting a head start on your next school or your next location that you'll be going to, whether it be the NFL or somewhere else. And losing the starters, to me, especially on the defense, is going to be, at least I initially worry, a big concern for Clemson going into this game. I truly believe that as it stands right now, unless my mind changes by the end of the week, going into next week, is that Clemson is going to get bruised up front. The Penn State offensive line is going to punish Clemson's defensive front, and they're going to run the ball all over Clemson. I don't think it's going to be that pretty. And maybe I'm wrong. I'm hoping I'm wrong, but I would go ahead and pick Penn State right now if you gave me an opportunity to do so, because of the fact that Clemson already had been struggling, in these kind of chunk plays still this year. And with a team that can bruise you running the ball, I think that's where the major advantage comes from, especially now that Clemson's going to be playing backups and getting them more opportunities. I love to see more opportunities, though, but it's going to reduce the play a little bit. If it doesn't, then maybe those guys are, maybe I'm not giving them enough credit, and maybe they are ready for the 2026 season. Now, there are certain players, there's really like a long list of players that will be on the field, will not be on the field. As we've kind of gone through NFL draft, Peter Woods, DeMonte Capehart, TJ Parker, Antonio Williams, Avion Terrell. Transfers, Shelton Lewis, Khalil Barnes, D. Creighton, Jamal Anderson, Keith Adams Jr. Before the South Carolina game, you had all of those guys except Shelton Lewis, really, and Jamal Anderson. So, out of those 10 guys that I just mentioned, 2 of them were really guys that weren't already part of the team for the most part. But those 8 other guys of that small group were guys that definitely did contribute to this team regularly. Ian Shefflin's going back to play basketball, as we find out now. After a failed experiment, he really wasn't contributing to the team that much. Amari Adams was contributing. Logan Anderson was not. Jarvis Green was not. Jay Haynes was not. Braden Jacobs was, but has been out even before the South Carolina game. Jaheim Lawson also was contributing. Armin Mason wasn't really contributing. Walker Parks was. Olson Pat Henry was. Colin Sadler was. Peyton Strecko was not. Elijah Thurman, I would like to say he was, but not, in my opinion, not really. Easton Ware, not really. Bryant Wesco definitely was. Makai Williams-Lee was not. And then Wade Woodaz is the new one, getting that surgery right after the South Carolina game. Antonio Williams also, as I mentioned earlier, for the NFL draft, but getting surgery as well. So a lot of young men who are not going to be playing on this team in the bowl game against Penn State. And that's a good group of guys who were actually going to rotate or contribute to this team. And that's why I feel like I'm less confident about Clemson going into this game. Now, you look at the offensive side of the ball, Cade Klubnik, Adam Randall, that's your normal 1-2 punch. Gideon Davidson expected. That's your 1-2-3 punch. Christian Bentancur, Josh Sapp, that's expected. Wide receiver, TJ Moore, Tyler Brown, Tristan Smith, those guys pretty expected. Cole Turner also. Tristan Lee, O'Connell, Linthicum, Sewell, Miller. That's going to be already still a tough one. Not my favorite lineup, as you already know if you listen to this show. Defensive line, that's where Clemson is very thin. You're not going to have Amari Adams. You're going to have Stephylan Green, Vic Burley, Champ Thompson. That's okay. Not great, though. Will Helt is returning. Cade Dinoff. But you're going to see heavy doses of Darren Mayo and Ari Watford, I think, in this game. And as I don't know if it's his dad or one of his family members, but I've been very high on Darren Mayo. We just haven't seen a ton of him. Obviously, very excited about Ari Watford as well. We haven't seen a ton of him either. So maybe my nervousness, and I tell you this a lot, I am a nervous fan. Okay, I'm a nervous graduate. I'm a nervous fan, nervous football fan. We're from Clemson. So I'm not saying that they won't turn out to be something good when they get their opportunity. It's just that my personality is hard for me to be not skeptical until we see it, So from high school levels, these guys are definitely guys that I want to see more of. It's just maybe this is now their time. And if they take advantage of it when in a game like this and actually show out in an area where I think is going to be a huge weakness could be a big deal for Clemson in 2026. So this could jumpstart a lot of these guys into 2026 if they take advantage of it. Sammy Brown, Jeremiah Alexander is going to be the rotation running linebacker because Wade Woodaz is out. Corian Gibson, nickel, Ashton Hampton, Brandon Strozier, Ronan Hanvin, Ricardo Jones. So, there's going to be some patchwork here and there on both sides of the ball, but there are going to be a lot of opportunities for new guys to get in and show what they can do. But ultimately, the answer to Dabo Swinney is yes, you're right. Nobody ultimately cares. The win or loss still goes on your record, whether or not you have your full roster or not. Both teams will not. So they got to make do with what they have. Coming up on segment 2, we're going to get into the quarterback situation, and Dabo saying it's a one-game season for that position right here on Locked On Clemson. The holidays are here, and whether you're hosting your family, planning for the perfect gift, or just trying to keep things simple and delicious, Omaha Steaks is making it easier than ever. From effortless holiday entertaining to unforgettable gifts, Omaha Steak delivers the world's best steak experience right to your door. And what makes it even better, with Omaha Steaks, you always know exactly what you're gifting. USDA certified tender steaks, premium proteins, gourmet sides, and a decadent amount of desserts that make anyone feel appreciated. I've sent Omaha Steaks as a gift to my brother-in-law. He loved it. The reaction was great when he opened up the box, and when he threw it on the grill, even better. It's become one of my favorite last-minute gifts ideas as well because it feels thoughtful even without requiring a lot of stress and worry. Save big on the gourmet gifts and holiday favorites with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com. And for an extra $35 off, use code COLLEGE at checkout. Terms apply. See site for details. That's omahasteaks.com. Promo code COLLEGE. Thank you so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You already live your team every day. Now take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Clemson with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and more, all for just $5 a month or $50 a year. Go over to lockedonclemson.supercast.com and sign up today, or check out the link in the show notes to learn more. All right, getting into segment number 2 here. Speaking of Clemson and what Dabo Swinney said in the press conference, one of the things he mentioned was about the quarterback position. And, I've already kind of stumped on what I think Clemson should do in 2026 for a quarterback. And that is they need to go into the transfer portal and get one. Do I really trust that Dabo Swinney will do that and follow through with that or pay the money for that? It's, honestly, 50-50. I would love to say yes, but I understand Dabo is going to stick with his guys a lot of times. I don't know. Also, it really kind of seems interesting because Dabo really, with no hesitation, rejected any sort of heavy rotation at quarterback in this bowl game. There was no hesitation at all, no nuance, no nothing. It was just like when he was asked about rotation, he'll say, he said, we'll see. And then he also mentioned that we're just trying to win the game. So to me, that tells you that Clemson is not treating this as a developmental bowl game. It's not treating this as getting a ton of reps for the future. That Dabo wants to treat this as a one game wins all situation, a playoff game, if you will, a standalone elimination game, if you will. And so not what we were initially expecting for this team moving forward. Now, I know a lot of us want to see some of these young guys or some of these guys who haven't got the same amount of opportunities, but it seems as if Dabo is more interested in winning this game, and he is going to march out Cade Klubnik, so far as what we can tell, to do that. So you may not see Chris Denson. You may not see Christopher Vizina in this bowl game. How does that really make you feel? Are you disappointed in hearing that? Or are you excited? Honestly, I can understand we all have Cade Klubnik fatigue. We don't really want to see more of Cade Klubnik because, that's now a thing of the past, the time of the past. He's not a bad quarterback. He's not a great quarterback. We know what we have with him, but we also know that Clemson does not keep him after this game. This is the final game with Cade Klubnik, so they need to do something. Now, it also could mean that these guys behind are still just not at that level that Dabo can trust, and with wanting to win the game, and maybe even giving us a hint that there's a possible opportunity for Clemson to go into the transfer portal, and these backup guys don't need the reps because they're not going to be the guy that they're pushing for to be a starter in 2026. A lot of big questions from this because we were expecting more of a developmental game than a we need to try to win the game. Clemson is dealing with a ton of injuries, as you know. The quarterback can be a big stabilizer for this game and for the operation, for the play calling. The protection matters for the quarterback because if the offensive line is struggling, which I believe that they will, that will disrupt the continuity of what the offense can do, what Garrett Riley can do. I know there were a lot of comments and thoughts about Garrett Riley at the end of this season, and to me, it seems as everything has settled down. He's still going to be the offensive coordinator going into next season. And again, that kind of points to me, and I haven't gotten any kind of insider info on this, but it's pointing towards to me that Clemson is interested in going into the portal for quarterback. I feel as if the decisions that they're going to make in this bowl game without trying to develop the next quarterback means that the next quarterback's not really on this roster. And so they're going to do what they can with the guys they have to win the game and to finish on a strong note, on a win for the 2025 season. But moving on into 2026, the leader of the offense is not out there. So Cade Klubnik is going to keep the team on schedule for the most part. He's going to run the offense the way you want for the most part. But it's not going to be any kind of experimentation, not going to be any type of developmental game at all. And Clemson's mindset going into this game seems to be that they're looking to get a Big Ten win over a good Penn State team, or at least a well-known Penn State team. I will say that, maybe not so much a good Penn State team. I have heard on social media that there seems to be interest from a lot of ACC teams in the transfer portal for quarterbacks. There's going to be a lot of competition. I've heard from others that have messaged me, and I wouldn't necessarily call them sources as of yet. Sorry, those of you who have messaged me. I wouldn't necessarily call them sources, but it is starting to feel as if Clemson is very interested in getting a quarterback. How much money they're willing to spend is another story, because like Sam Levitt or the other guys that are out there, the guy from North Texas, probably going to warrant a lot of money. I know that DJ Lagway is out there. I have a personal feeling about that because, when he visited Clemson, he used, or at least his audio visual staff, his editing staff used my voice for his video going and visiting Clemson. And then he never committed to Clemson. So I kind of got a little salty about that. But, we'll see what happens there. DJ Lagway's kind of taken a step back from what we thought he was in high school. There's also Jaden Davis. Clemson went after him a lot from Charlotte. They really wanted him. Dabo really wanted this guy. He visited Clemson a ton. He ended up going to Michigan, but you know what happened in Michigan? It's all in shambles now. Honestly, to me, the part where it confuses me about Dabo as well, and maybe you guys can tell me what you think about it, but you pursue someone for many years in the recruiting trail, and then when they don't pick you and they get into the portal, you act like you don't want them, even if you do need somebody in that position. That to me doesn't make a lot of sense. So if Jaden Davis was worth all that effort in recruiting and all that time and all that money and all those plane tickets and whatever it may be, all the travel, all the food, all the entertaining, if you can now go and get him back, and and he is successful for you, well, then you've basically saved money. All that recruiting effort is now no longer to waste for another team. It is now being used for your team, even though, that player no longer has the same amount of eligibility. It still is something that you can bring back around and use it to your benefit using the transfer portal. So to me, I would say those guys that you went out heavily after, why wouldn't you go back after them again? Especially if you haven't done anything to replace them or get a guy that is already better than them coming in. And I don't think Clemson has that. So that's what I would do if I was Dabo Swinney. That's where I would go with it. And that's why I feel like it would be a good idea to go strong in the portal after those guys that you've already spent a ton of time and money on. All right. Hey, segment 3 is coming up, the final segment of the show. We're going to talk about Dabo Swinney saying he's drawing the line again for Clemson right here on Locked on Clemson. The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994. And with 48 teams for the first time ever, it's going to be massive. But let's be honest, getting tickets is usually the hardest part. That's why Game Time app is clutch, finally giving fans the real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With Game Time, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts when great seats open up, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands and makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. Alerts for your teams and matches make it easy to grab tickets the moment they drop instead of missing out. Prices include fees up front, which I love. No last-second surprises at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets and every match, every concert, or every event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app, make an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off Game Time. Dabo drawing the line again. His phrasing in the press conference was intentional. It did not criticize any specific player for opting out, did not jump down anybody for doing that or making decisions that were best for them. Instead, he tried his best to elevate the players that they do have, the ones that are staying, and continuing to fight for the Tigers in 2025 at the end of this season in the bowl game, and also sticking through to 2026 and beyond. And that's what you would expect from Dabo and his leadership, to reinforce the behaviors that he wants to have replicated and starve the behaviors that he wants to get rid of. He doesn't want to have guys they're bailing on his team midway through the season. Guys like Shelton Lewis are kind of the opposite of what he's trying to build and grow at Clemson and promote. And it sends a message to the locker room that he is very much committed to the players who are also committed to him. And, there is some flaws in that we've talked about and talked about the frustrations with being maybe too committed to guys who are not producing on the field as if they should, or at least, to the level of their competition. But that is a valuable currency inside the locker room to me, as long as you know that your coach is definitely committed to you. He's not treating you transactionally, even while the sport as a whole has moved on from this. This to me is Dabo's strength from a value standpoint. Now, he also made a very rare admission, in my opinion, admitting that he really did not want to lose Khalil Barnes. And he said that it was very significant because, in my opinion, I felt like it was very significant because he almost never says things like that publicly, or speaking about what we would call a former player like Khalil Barnes. He's a guy who started with the system. Dabo gave him a chance. Wasn't heavily recruited, but was a really good two-way star, offense and defensive star, and homecoming king, at his high school. So he was extremely popular, extremely well-liked, and an extremely hard worker on the football field. That translated to Clemson somewhat, and we've kind of showcased that there was a ceiling there that was hit with Khalil Barnes that maybe he can break through somewhere else. But it is nice to know that Dabo still named someone like that. And it means that he felt as if he was committed to seeing Barnes break through that, what I thought was a ceiling. And that's where we would differ. You know, a lot of what I felt is that Barnes showed his ceiling over 2 seasons, and he fizzled out very quickly. You know, he had a great freshman campaign. Sophomore was caught, cheating way too much, looking in the backfield way too much. And then his junior season, to me, that's where the speed started to drop off. So maybe there was a breakthrough where they could get to the next level with Khalil Barnes. Maybe the staff felt as if they just needed more time with him. But ultimately, Dabo, I don't think, believes that Khalil Barnes left because of performance or role, but more of patience. And maybe there is something true to that. There's not a lot of patience in today's college football. Everybody wants to get more playing time now, get more publicity now, get more money now, and they don't want to continue to take the time to work through even some plateaus or what I would call some ceilings. Maybe there is some truth to that, or that could possibly be just more of kind of the blindness that Dabo has. That's where I'm a little bit worried about Dabo as a whole. I do believe that he is overly optimistic about players' chances to continue to develop and break through their ceiling. A lot of times, in my opinion, what we have seen is once they show you that this is kind of who they are, that's when you really need to recognize that early and try to find a replacement on your team or outside of your team as quickly as possible. I believe in a lot of ways, Clemson is where it's at now because of Dabo giving guys more and more chances to work through their ceilings, and it's just not working out. He also made it very clear as well, he's not moving the line on the transfer portal philosophy, that he's going to have probably nationally among the fewest transfers in nationally, like amount wise. And that to me is blatant, not ignorance, but blatant choice. So if they only bring in a handful, then that was fully Dabo Swinney's choice. Now he's got to accept the trade-off when you don't do that. You know, you're going to put yourself at risk for developmental misses from your recruiting, from not only the 2026 freshmen, but the 2027 or 2025 sophomores now. So you're exposing yourself to misses on talent evaluation from high school. You're exposing yourself to less opportunity to make a quick fix. And so that is another concern I have going into 2026 is if they only take a handful of transfer portal guys. First of all, I don't believe that they're going to have enough guys that they're not going to be replenishing what they lost at that point, which doesn't really make sense. To me, just numerically mathematical, you would have to have more transfer portals than 3. And many of us have said about around 15, but some people have told me to kind of step back from 15 and say more like 8. I just don't see how the math works out with 8. It seems to be you seem to be losing many more players than that. I hope that this is a calculated move and that the players that he does go out and get can impact the team immediately. I believe Clemson needs to fully embrace the transfer portal in philosophy and in volume in order to find opportunities to replace those developmental misses, to replace those guys that have left you when you wanted to stick with them. But it's also time for Clemson and Dabo to kind of take a look back and say, we can't we cannot continue to say that this guy deserves another year of chances, and they don't get a lot of snaps, or they can't get a lot of trust to even start games. I'm not really sure that it is worth putting a guy on scholarship and even paying them any money to then play 100 snaps in their entire career. Over 4 or 5 seasons, you've only ever played 100 snaps. To me, if those players aren't getting out recruited and moved on, then why are they still on the team? That's a big question mark for me, especially now under the new NIL or revenue share, where players are getting part of the money. If they're not contributing to the team at all, then it's hard for me to see why they're continuing to stick around for 4 years or even 5 years. Because there's plenty of other football teams out there that would love to have that player and even actually use that player or be able to use them because of the talent level. Now, maybe they are helping out in the practice squad, I guess, but I'm still very confused by it. Let me know what you think over in the comments over on X. You can message me at the Morgan T Show. And thank you so much for tuning in to Locked On Clemson. Tomorrow's episode, we'll talk to you about that, give you a little post game from the Clemson Carolina basketball game. Not post game, but our reaction from the night after. And make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On Clemson so you get all the latest updates. You can find me again on social media at The Morgan T Show. If you need a last-minute holiday gift or someone keeps asking you what you want, it's easy. You should say the Everydayer Club. Ad-free episodes of this show, exclusive Discord server access, and more subscriptions can be gifted through lockedonclemson.supercast.com. For those of you on video, we'll send you over to 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. And on audio, make sure you hang out and listen. Make your second listen the Locked On College Football Podcast. And as always, Tiger fans, we'll see you tomorrow, and we'll see you at the top of the hill.